and welcome to the Football New South Wales Community Podcast. I'm Nicholas Carroll, Football New South Wales Head of Marketing and Communications, and joining me to introduce a special series of podcast episodes is our Head of Football Development, Edward Ferguson. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks very much, Nick. Good to be on and good to be able to talk about coach education and football development in general.
So this series of content all stems from the 2024 Football New South Wales Coaching Conference held here at Ballantyne Sports Park. So firstly, look, it was a sold-out event. Could you tell us a little bit about how the event went and what the feedback has been thus far?
Yeah, sure thing. It was our second time running the event now after bringing it back after COVID, and it was extremely successful, and obviously the appetite of the football community is there for everyone to see. We had well over 800 members of our football community go through the doors, and we gave them an option to really create their own journey during the day. So there was a few keynotes which everybody was encouraged to go and observe and watch and listen to, but then also throughout the day we had practical sessions outside. Luckily, we did them in the morning when it wasn't too hot, and then theoretical sessions in the afternoon. And so coaches, depending on the level that they're at, whether they're grassroots or up to NPL and even A-League level, as well as what type of player, goalkeepers, there might be a bit of S&C, and different levels of junior players, they could pick which practical they go to. They could pick which theory session they could go to. And it really just allowed them to customize or personalize their coach education journey. And so for each day of the conference, you gain CPD points to allow us to keep our coach accreditations valid. You need to do 15 hours over the course of 3 years. So each day was 5 hours, which is a pretty healthy amount to be able to tick off. And so, we encourage coaches to pick what was relevant to them and pick what's going to make their players have a better experience on the park. And obviously we do it at the end of the season so we can reset, refresh, and get the coaches ready to go ahead of the February-March kickoff.
And just being amongst the attendees and speaking to coaches on the day, what was the kind of general feeling and feedback?
I think there was a glimpse into the football culture that we have in Football New South Wales, and I think football as a whole. Loads of people reconnecting with old friends, sharing stories, and listening, learning, challenging each other. And so I think it's a really great community event for the football members. You obviously go on coaching courses and you almost become best friends with these people for a few days with 24 other people on a course, and then you might not see them again until you're the opposition coach essentially. So it's a great way to bring them all together and to listen and to learn and challenge each other. And so I think that sentiment was definitely felt throughout the days, and there was a really positive culture, and obviously talking about some of the things that are maybe a bit more taboo about, parent education and behavior was a big topic. About, Gabriel, one of our presenters from Brazil, he talked about creating chaotic environments, whereas obviously on football fields and potentially, in coaching courses, we want to educate coaches to create structured, formal, clean looking coaching. Whereas, his message was about creating chaotic environments where kids make decisions and players are empowered, rather than always being dictated to by a coach. So I think that element of it was really good to see coaches grasp those concepts and challenge each other, and obviously challenge our presenters about how they can deliver that in our kind of Football New South Wales environment. So fantastic day. Bit too hot, but we can't manage that. But again, great to see the turnout. After last year, we had 600 people. Now we've got 800 people, and now the challenge is how do we keep providing for the football community and making it valuable and really worthwhile for them.
Yeah, great. So speaking to some of those great presenters that we had on the weekend, can you tell us a bit about the Extra Time podcast, which we're now able to share with the wider community over the coming weeks?
Yeah, sure. It came off the back of last year and the feedback that we received both from the attendees but also internally at Football New South Wales about how do we get the most out of the presenters. If you were attending the conference, you would have seen we had Graham Arnold. We had 3 overseas presenters from England, Brazil and US. We also had the FA Boys Technical Director, Trevor Morgan. These are huge names in our game in Australia and overseas. And so we wanted to be able to capture the nuggets of wisdom and knowledge that they have and ensure that we can continue to filter them out to the football community, to the coaching community throughout the next year. And so we thought we'd take the opportunity, and it was during the morning tea and lunch breaks, to just ask them some simple questions and really to come up with 3 or 4 tips and hints that they would recommend to coaches. And so, yeah, we had an array of goalkeepers to parent education to Graham Arnold, and obviously he's a legendary figure in the Australian game, coaching and playing, and obviously only recently stepping down as our national team coach. So I think it just allows us to be able to continue to provide informal coach education, if you will, and make it super accessible. So it doesn't matter if you're in Albury Wodonga or you're in the centre of Sydney, you can access that information and get a bit of a glimpse into the great minds that football has to offer.
Yep. So we'll get into episode 1 shortly. Before you go, though, we've been running the technical area coaching newsletter now for 2 years, I believe, which we've continually developed. So do you want to give us a quick 30-second plug as to what that's all about?
Yes, sure thing. Well, we have a big challenge here. We've got 17,000 coaches in New South Wales, so a huge task to be able to educate them and communicate consistently to them. And so the newsletter attempts to do that. We have relevant articles, upcoming courses, but then a new area that we've started to develop in the last 12 months, I'd say, is small videos and session plans from members of our community. So there might be videos of, a coach working within our MPL space. He or she would record a short video and provide a session plan, which then obviously can be adopted by the other 16,999 coaches that we have. And also just, little articles to, again, help challenge people's thinking about how we approach coaching kids to adults to the S&C side, the psychological side, all that type of stuff, really just to make our coach education more accessible.
And anyone who isn't receiving that at the moment and would like to subscribe to the newsletter, they can do so on the Football New South Wales website via the main Coaching Hub page. Thank you, Ed, and we'll now get straight into episode 1 of the Extra Time series. Episode 1 is an interview with FIFA technical expert and e-learning manager at the Oceania Football Confederation, Sean Douglas. Sean takes us through 3 key tips to be the leader you wish you had. We hope you enjoy.
Hello, welcome everybody to the Extra Time podcast. My name is Gareth Long, and I'm sat here in the beautiful sunshine at Valentine Sports Park next to Field 1 as part of the Football New South Wales Coaching Conference. Absolute pleasure to be joined by Sean Douglas. Sean is the e-learning development manager at OFC and also a FIFA technical expert under the leadership of Arsene Wenger. Now, our challenge is to explore in no more than 20 minutes 3 tips to be the leader that you wished you had. So we're not going to go straight into that, Sean. My first question is kind of looking at why we're talking about this. I mean, do players really care about a coach's leadership qualities?
Yeah, I think as coaches we focus probably too much on the technical and tactical and not enough on the people. As leaders, every environment that we're in, there is a culture, whether we know it or not, whether we want to influence it or not. So players will, maybe they're not aware of it, but they'll definitely feel the culture. Okay, so they'll definitely know a positive culture versus a negative or a critical one, and they probably don't know the difference until they've experienced both. They've had a great leader and maybe a leader who's not so connected with them.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And look, at the conference today, we've got people coaching across lots of different contexts. So I suppose this is a bit of a double-barreled question, but I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a best way to coach? Best way to lead as a coach? And also, I suppose the sort of flip side is, if there's not a best way, and there might be, but are there any non-negotiables that all leaders need to have or all leaders need to think about?
Yeah, look, there's no one way. I mean, leadership is huge. It's situational. It depends on the context. It depends on the people. However, what I would say is that all of the best leaders develop connection, and all of the best leaders are authentic. And what I mean by that, they are themselves. They don't change. So often, somebody gets promoted into a leadership position and they change what they're doing. They change how they behave. They act as what they think a leader should do. Okay, rather than being human, treating the people as humans first. That's for me is the connection piece, and that's the starting point for driving high performance.
And a little bit more about authenticity then. What do we mean by that? You know, I'm thinking of again an under-9s coach to somebody who might be leading, you know, tens of coaches in a coaching program. What do we kind of mean by authenticity?
I think it is being yourself, not being a clone. You know, I think I've run many coaching courses, and one of the things I've learned over the years is we don't want clones. We don't want people mimicking the instructors or facilitators. We want them to be themselves, bring their own personality. In terms of leading, you know, leadership is important right from, like you said, under-9s all the way through. On coaching courses, we typically didn't cover leadership until the pro diploma, and by then it's too late. You know, we're seeing professional coaches who are micromanagers, professional coaches who are very controlling, and that's a very short-term leadership structure. You know, in chaos, yes, we need to be hands-on, command and control, but that doesn't work over the long term. So we need to introduce leadership at all levels and all the way through. You know, under-9s, it's about creating that fun environment. That's leadership. It's not about the X's and O's.
And you mentioned connection, and obviously I'm thinking a coach needs to connect with players, and not all coaches do, but the very good ones do. Who else do coaches need to connect with?
Again, it depends on the context. In a professional environment, you've got other staff, you've got fans, you've got media. The under-9s, you've definitely got parents. You know, and I'm really looking forward to hear from Sky this week about her work there. In a youth space, I think, yeah, one of the most important ones is the players. Your assistant coach, making sure they're on the same page, in alignment with the values that you want to put in place. That's a really big one for me.
So I think we're ready to lock in tip 1, Sean. Okay, I think tip 1 of to be the leader you wished you had is connection and authenticity. You happy with that?
Yep, let's lock that in.
All right, that's one of them locked in. All right, okay, so I think most people would set out, well, no one would really set out to be a poor leader, a bad leader. Some people are more aware of it than others. I think that might be fair to say. But what's a sign that leadership has been effective? If there's no one way of doing it, there's many different ways of doing it, as long as we're connecting and we're being authentic to who we are. Is there any evidence that we would know that we're being authentic, that we're being effective in our leadership?
I think what you'll start to see and hear is a lot of the same language, communication coming from whether that's players or staff. There's an alignment. You might start to see players and whoever, you know, it could be business leadership with staff. People are feeling empowered. They're inspired. I think that's the biggest job of a coach and a leader, is to inspire people to be the best they can be. You know, not tell them how to do it, but if you can create that inspiration, you're going to be 3/4 of the way there, in my eyes.
So if we're inspiring players and empowering players, I love that word, empowering players. What might we, if I'm watching an effective leader who's created that over time, it doesn't sound like it's a short, fixed thing to do. It sounds like something that takes time. What would I maybe see in that environment that would indicate to me that the players or even parents, assistant coaches are empowered and or inspired?
Yeah, the $64 million question, I think.
So we've got 15 minutes left. We're okay.
What I think is, from a coaching perspective, we need to change to more positive. I'll use an example I witnessed recently with a coach, probably good meaning intentions. After a game, he called out 2 or 3 of the players for the mistakes they made and said it wasn't good enough, you've got to work on that. The impact that has on the player then, not only with their peers, so it was teenagers are really crucial, their peers, their social group. As they get isolated from that, it's almost like death. It's like the caveman times where we get isolated, we're not going to survive. We still have that instinct inside us. So I think if we're doing that to players, emotion drives learning. They're not going to learn. There's going to be that lack of trust, that lack of respect, that lack of connection. So the opposite to that then is we are seeing coaches who are maybe addressing faults, but in a positive way. Not calling out players, not making judgments, criticisms, creating that environment where players feel safe to really challenge themselves, really push those boundaries and make mistakes.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I like the fact you make the point around, I must admit, when you talked about connection, my mind went to coach-player. But of course, that's developing connections between players and teammates and aspects like that, which is really nice. So if we're talking about empowerment of players, again, my mind went to the coaching session. Players making decisions, players self-assessing, peer assessing, etc. But I suppose there's another two areas as well. There's the empowerment on match day and in the competition environments, but there's also empowerment in everything that's outside of the coaching session and match days. So again, what's that look like?
I'll probably give you an example from an organisational perspective. So I work at Oceania Football. Within 6 months, we'd had a nice achievement in bringing the online learning platform to life. And I work remote from the office, so I work in Melbourne, head office is in Auckland. I get a knock at the door, and I'm, okay, who's coming in our door? I open the door, and there's a guy standing there with gourmet cupcakes. And he's giving them to me, and I'm, well, are you sure you've got the right place? We didn't order any of these. So it turns out that OFC then rewarding the values of the hard work and the behaviour and just making me feel valued for the work that I've done. So on the ground, some of the things we're looking for from coaches is to highlight maybe the process or the hard work that the players are doing and the process that they're in towards getting better. Rather than focusing on outcomes, focus on that process and those little steps. So you feel valued, you feel like you're making progress. Those are the sorts of things we want to see on the field from coaches.
Yeah, now I should ask a question about how coaches can make players valued, but what I really want to know is what makes a cupcake a gourmet cupcake?
The ones that taste fantastic.
Brilliant. All right, I reckon we can lock in tip 2. Sean, if you're happy with this, it's, again, tips to be the leader you wished you had. And tip number 2 seems to be around empowerment. Inspiring growth and creating opportunities for others to shine.
Yeah, and I probably expanding on that is often the leader taking a backward step. They're not the one in the limelight. Ultimately, as a coach, the players are the ones that play, and the coach has a major influence on how good they can be and how well the team performs. But at the end of the day, it's the players that do it, and they're the ones that should be valued and congratulated.
Yeah, lovely. And look, that leads really nicely to kind of the next question, which is around, I love the fact you think it's a shared responsibility and sometimes the coach needs to take a backward step. But there are standards in a team culture. I guess there's things where things are acceptable, things aren't acceptable, and standards where everybody in that team, players, coaching staff, parents, etc., would subscribe to and agree to. So who is responsible for setting those standards in a team culture?
I think in terms of setting the standards, coaches and players and if you've got parents involved, ideally they're involved in the process. In terms of policing them and making sure they're adhered to, that's definitely the job of the leader, which is the coach. You want to identify what are the values that you want to live by, that this group or this team or this family want to live by, and then how do you bring those to life, and how do you reward those values? I think another example in my time at Oceania, they really value family and balance, work-life balance. So one of the things they do is over Christmas, they'll shut off the email system, they'll shut off the file system, so you literally cannot work.
Good.
So there's a value brought to life, family and balance. In addition to that, over the weekend, they're a football organisation, and I'm so used to working on the weekend, but nobody sends emails, nobody sends phone calls. 5 o'clock Friday to Monday morning is protected time, family and balance. So their values are really brought to life with the behaviours that they do.
And what the coach's responsibility then, once the standards have been established, agreed, and lived by, is it that the coach obviously oversees it and is kind of making sure that they are adhered to? It sounds a little bit in control maybe, and you'd hope that others take control of that, I guess. But also a big responsibility for the coach to live up to them themselves. And coaches aren't perfect, and maybe we try to be, but sometimes we're not. So what's the sort of balance between the coach being the person that models them consistently to sometimes falling short themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word is there, integrity, walking the talk. You can't say one thing and then do another. These are all behaviors, if you want to call them that, or principles that a good leader and a good coach needs to embody and bring to life. As you said, I think the standards ideally are driven by everybody. It can't be just one person. And if you get a good culture in place, then the standards will be driven by players, if it's parents, those sorts of things, and the coach leading them, but with the support of everyone.
Brilliant. So I reckon we're ready to lock in our third and final tip, and we'll refresh these in a minute, but I think our third and final tip is to be the leader you wished you had. You must model integrity, set the standards, and model the standards. Anything to add, or happy with that, Sean?
No, I'm happy with that, and that probably brings it back full circle to authenticity, being the person you say you're going to be.
Yeah, look, before we summarise these 3 tips, I'd just like to leave by maybe just getting your advice on, you can listen to 1,000 podcasts on leadership in high performance and business and, government or whatever it might be. But I wonder maybe just a little bit of something, not necessarily to do, but something for somebody like myself working in a grassroots team, a community club, just something for me to think about or notice, or a question for me to ask myself as a starting point for my own leadership in that context.
What a great question.
Should have started with that one, shouldn't
I? I think it comes back to the last point. Are you walking the walk? Are you being the person you want the players to be? Are you modelling the behaviours that you want to see? I think you can really ask yourself that. Humility, integrity, taking that time to get perspective, so you're not just down in the grass and the weeds all the time. You can step back and have a look, taking the time to reflect, mostly on your own behaviour, on your own sessions, not on the progress of the players, but on yourself. I think looking inwards first is always a great way to start.
Yeah, nice to look in the mirror. Yeah. Sean, that's brilliant. I'm going to let you, in a minute, recap our 3 tips that we agreed on. And I also look forward to your sessions here at the coaching conference, where you're going to delve even deeper into leadership and culture. So look forward to those. But over to you, Sean. Remind us of our 3 tips for being the leader we wished we had.
Thanks, Gareth. And number 1, connection and authenticity. So be yourself and treat people as humans first. Create that connection. That's the foundation for everything, for high performance. Then, as a leader, your job is to empower, inspire others. It's not about directing and controlling. It's about taking the cap off, the ceiling off, letting people grow beyond you. And the third one is about modelling integrity. Be the person, set the standards and model the standards. Be the person you want the players to be.
Sean, quality. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you for tuning in to the Football New South Wales Community Podcast, where we've been featuring the Extra Time series recorded at the 2024 Football New South Wales Coaching Conference. Tickets are now on sale for the 2025 Club Development Conference, with more details and ticket information at footballnsw.com.au.